Well, Charles, that didn't work perfectly exactly the way that I wanted it to. We missed the music carrying all the way through,
That's
but
all
I think
right.
people get the idea. It's Star Wreck, the Wrath of International Cons. And I must admit, Charles, the original Star Trek Wrath of Khan, you know, like Ricardo Montalban Khan, that was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. So it's good that we are using that, but that was one of our most complex opening arrangements, and I screwed it up a little bit because it was complex. Okay.
That's quite all right. I mean, again, hats off to the art department. This is, I mean, we need to savor this image, because here you have, you know, crooked Bill Clinton,
Yes.
with these faceless people behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, and that really, to me, adroitly connotes the many boffins around the world, you know, political operatives, Cody Shearer, Sidney Blumenthal, and then the former presidents and prime ministers and leaders like Tony Blair and Sarkozy, you know. It's just these people, they get together, you know, and they take things way past where they should go, inside in Arkansas in the case of Bill, inside the United States in the case of Bill, and they get away with epic criminality.
Yeah.
And they say, well, hey, if nobody's going to catch me at home, they're never going to catch a complex international set of frauds.
Right.
And all these other people watch this and they say, you know, the President of the United States can't really be doing what Bill Clinton just did for 8 years. And then enough of them say, but maybe he is doing that, and maybe I can do that. You know, let's join that club, because that's a lot of fun. Epstein Island, private planes, flying around, girls, boys, whatever you want, you know. And so this crooked team, and I think Bill is the de facto leader of this crooked team,
Yes.
has been at this now for 30 years, 30 plus years.
Right. This is the army of nomads on SETI Alpha 6 with Khan there. We made a joke about, well, now I've never heard this word boffins before you brought it up last week, and I made a Star Wars joke about it, but what is a boffin?
Well, boffin is either an egghead, basically.
Okay.
It's an English slang term. It's either an egghead or a political, you know, it's Clapper would be your perfect boffin in my mind, right? I think we should refer to him as Crapper, actually.
He was a conehead, so we had him, you know, nailed.
Mr.
earlier.
Ears.
Right.
But I mean, you look at this guy, Bill Clinton, and this is a great job. He's got who's that guy, that actor with the, what do you call it? The
Ricardo Montalban?
No, the haircut, mullet, the mullet.
Oh, the mullet, yeah.
You know, that actor. There's a couple of movies where the guy with a mullet gets left behind by his parents.
Oh, you mean Macaulay Culkin?
No, that's not Home Alone. It's another one. Joe Dirt.
Oh yes.
How could you not? How could you forget Joe Dirt?
I never actually saw Joe Dirt.
It was
I'm
pretty
aware
stupid
of
and pretty funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, here you have the bad people, and
Yep.
then you have the team of good guys. I think it's Mike Rogers,
Yes.
Mike Flynn. Donald Trump's picture is not all that flattering, but
well, he's supposed to be screaming, "Khan!"
I see. All right.
You know, like in
Does look a little bit like chipmunk teeth, but but it is a great poster. I mean, I really wish that we could get, we know this is, I think, our 78th, 79th,
something like that,
you know, up there. If we could get all of them, you know, in one place.
and maybe make a mega poster of all the posters.
Yeah, or, you know, you'd have to have a big wall to actually go through and do all these posters, but...
You know what we could eventually do, Charles? Have you ever seen these photo mosaics? We could have a portrait of you made up of each poster of the different Sundays, Charles.
To scare children forever.
Something to strive for in the future.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a week, Charles. I'm sure you have quite a lot for us to go over today. Should we get right to the slide presentation?
Sure. So we'll jump right in. We have 9 slides today, but actually this is a day where I believe if you're not completely shocked, you, Jason, and the audience, if you're not completely shocked about what we're just going to reveal, then you're not paying attention.
Right.
We are going to get into how this international con game has diabolically
Before in the
infected
future.
the normal good relations between the UK and the US. The level of corruption between involving the Clinton Foundation, donors to the Clinton Foundation, trustees of the Clinton Foundation, the Clintons themselves, with with elements of the English superstructure, is beyond belief.
The UK.
In the UK, and as I say here, it's a giant uniparty plot, Bones. It's not simply Democrats and Republicans. It's in England you've got conservatives, what do they call them? Liberals, conservatives, and Labor. They're all the same. Right. They say for the purposes of a national election that there's a difference. It's a difference without a distinction. It's all the same. And what they're doing is they're going around the world and they're basically ripping off either actual cash from governments or borrowings of governments that are gotten together to finance these noble causes that sound so great to all of us. But the people involved make sure that there's never any accounting for it. And literally, hundreds of billions of dollars are disappearing around the world because of this crooked slew of people who then go around and take credit for their good works. They want praise for their foundation works. They want accolades. They want Nobel Prizes. They want book contracts. They want
the Nobel Prize.
And they're all being swaddled around with these security people from mansion to presidential suite to resort to speech venue, all these adoring crowds. And nobody ever stands up and says, hey, wait a minute, you are nothing, you're a common thief. You're a fraudster.
Because then they get hit by some private intelligence firm that starts surveilling.
Right, and I think to understand, that's why I bring this up and why I think this is such an important episode. I hope our crowdsourcing team will do their best, and we really appreciate when you do this, to circulate this particular video far and wide. Because we're going to show you something that is about to happen in July. Somebody who is centrally involved in this fraud.
That's a new subject. What's about to happen.
What's about to happen, yeah. We know Hillary can't write that book.
Right.
But what's about to happen is that this person who is centrally involved in a gigantic fraud is about to go as a non-executive director of the Bank of England, which is like the Federal Reserve System. It's a very powerful central bank. Yeah. This person is going to be rewarded for a lifetime of fraud with this unbelievable honorific position, and that should not happen.
Agreed. There's all kinds of things that should not happen. Right. Charles, our audience is well educated. People in Periscope and YouTube are saying that a boffin is a British scientist nerd.
Right, but I think they're all those type of people are also technocrats.
Right.
Who end up in the political apparatus as well. It's a good phrase. I love some of the English slang.
Yes. It's always good to have some new slang come into the lexicon there. Yeah,
even into our dictionary.
Exactly.
But the reality here, the sad reality when you score your economic gains from 1988 to the present, when the average person who's been around that long, an older person, looks at how much money they were making and spending in 1988, and what they would have left at the end of the year.
Right.
Compares it to economic reality today, where so many people are vulnerable and don't have job security outside the public sector, where everyone's vulnerable to replacement by technology, by robots, by foreign cheaper labor, et cetera.
There's a strike coming in Vegas against robots. Somebody opened a bar where it's using a robot arm.
Well, I saw a great ad this morning on Fox and Friends for a robotic lawnmower.
Wow.
By Husqvarna, which is I think a Swedish or a Finnish company, that it actually works perfectly. Just put this gadget out on your lawn. You don't have to
run
pay
over rabbits, cats,
no,
whatever.
No, it's well done. Babies. No, it's well made so that it instantly stops if it hits anything other than a blade of grass.
I saw a video about a robot kitchen where it's like two arms that slide across and you basically load it up with your vegetables and whatever ingredients you're making, and it's actually two anthropomorphic arms that cook everything.
That's kind of creepy.
I mean,
but if you think about what's happened really is that the chain of production, whether it's for manufacturing or services, which used to encourage having multiple steps, ideally in one country.
Yes.
By that multiple step process, what you were doing is you were creating this ripple effect, this multiplier effect, where lots of people were making money and then turning around and spending money and buying products and services. But when you take this long chain and you say, you know what, instead of doing that, I'm going to take the middle of it and ship it over to India, where people are going to pretend that they're following all these environmental and other rules. In reality, they're not going to play by the rules, and they're going to pay these people less than spit in India. Those people who are making less than spit cannot buy a General Motors car, let alone a Subway sandwich. They can't buy anything. And so what you're doing is you're hollowing out, by this method that's happened since 1988, you've been hollowing out the potential, the income potential of the middle, the vast middle, really the bottom 90% of the world, to benefit people at the very top who will give you lectures about inequality and growing inequality and how you should have more taxes on this, and more, 'cause they're flying around their jets going to their presidential palaces. And we need to take these people and say, you know what, you're absolutely right. Let's have a conference. You can address this conference. We'll have a special conference. Don't look too carefully at the bars that are going to be on the outside of the Coliseum. You march all these people into the Coliseum, and then you have a show trial where you get all your money back for this 3 decades, 30 years of garbage thinking with this globalism that is not really, globalism sounds great until people have to admit, we're talking about globalism with no laws.
But why 1988, Charles? Didn't this start with Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics, and then of course George H.W. and I think, when was he president? From 1984 to 88 to 92.
89 to 93. But the thing about, the reason 88 is so important is up until 88, you could draw the line anywhere you want, but up until 88, Communist China was not really interested in capitalism. I mean, you go back and look at the size of the economy of China in 1988, it was a peanut, not even a peanut.
Wow.
India did not reject socialism until the mid-90s, around 95.
Wow.
The Soviet Union was still a thing
in
1988. Yep. Central Europe was locked down under it. And so that was a big change in 1988. Now, so we could have done this properly. We could have gone and said, yeah, we want to open up the world. You, GE or whatever, if you want to go make jet engines in India, you could do that. You
don't fly on that.
Well, I mean, you could do it, but you're going to be subject to this. Just to sell that jet engine in the United States, you're going to be subject to the same kind of inspection regime that any American company would have.
Of course.
If you say you're going over there and you're going to comply with environmental laws of India, you got to actually do that. You say you're going to pay your corporate taxes in India, you got to actually do that. There wasn't that sort of regime set up in the 1988 forward vision. Instead, it became an excuse for these gigantic multinational companies who are, I'm sure there's some that are well run, but GE is definitely one that has been run into the ground, arguably under Welch first, not simply under Immelt, but under this new idiot Flannery, who's,
the cavalcade of idiots.
I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like watching an episode of Faulty Towers play out in, Boston, where GE is now, operated. It's like, Basil Fawlty is running GE.
But the thing that you just said is interesting, because I think a lot of people don't really put that together. I mean, we remember, Mr. Gorbachev bring down the wall, perestroika, the McDonald's and Pepsi commercials in Red Square and everything. And I guess everybody sort of knows now that you can go to Russia and it's like, buy stuff, everything's fine. But the world has really changed quite a lot in just 30 years.
And so, you think about in the old days where, I'll tell you flat out, when I started with my MBA in 1980, my starting salary was $30,000, and I got a $6,000 bonus at the end of 6 months' work.
That's lunch for you now.
Well, I don't eat lunch, as you know. But
there you go. That's how you save all that money.
That's right. That's the only way I could cope. But the point is that instead of going down a system where we would encourage creating a lot of jobs in that level, instead what we're doing is we're encouraging a system where there's massive disinterest in working, and there's massive appetite in overpaying all these boneheads, many of these boneheads who work in the various parts of government that are never subjected to any kind of real scrutiny, in many cases can't even be fired, and you're paying them far more than you would actually pay in the private sector for similar work. And it's a perverse set of imperatives at work inside this country that really need to be changed. We need to go back to base principles and stop this ridiculous argument of the rabid wing of the Democratic Party that things are so terrible in the United States of America. This is the largest, deepest, biggest economy, biggest integrated market in the world. We have a system of laws that's imperfect, but we have one. We have a common tradition that goes back over 2 centuries. This is not a basket case, or as they say, I will use this phrase because I'll pronounce it properly, it's not a shithole.
Shithole is the proper pronunciation. But Charles, haven't people lost tremendous buying power with the dollar from 1988 to today?
Absolutely, and that therein lies the rub. These politicians encourage Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this is somebody who honestly needs to go to the glue factory. I mean, but when I was very young, my own parents told me this, but then I ran into this person in Millbrook who had a theory, which is a really good theory, and he actually told my second child, my daughter, this when she was very young. He said, listen, her name's Montana. Montana, when you get your first paycheck, and every time thereafter, always remember one thing: pay yourself first. In other words, out of that paycheck, take something, maybe 5 cents out of a dollar, maybe 10, maybe 20 cents, and save it for a rainy day. Pay yourself first. It's a very good thing to put inside a little child's head, that you shouldn't just be organizing your life to mortgage your future and have no money and have no live from paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And that's a simple lesson that of course people in government don't follow, because what do our governments do? They run gigantic deficits every year.
Well, didn't Ronald Reagan start that deficit spending model, or where did that really begin?
Well, I mean, the biggest deficit we ever ran.
Nixon and Johnson.
No, the biggest deficit we ever ran was during World War II. When we went, and the numbers were staggering because the size of the private economy was very small,
right,
and the size of the borrowings were gigantic. That was in modern history, and you could say that wasn't that modern, but relatively recent history. That was when we ran the biggest deficit. Yes, Reagan did run deficits which are puny in comparison to the deficits run by Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And now, frankly, under Donald Trump.
Didn't Obama double it during his...
He doubled, well, there's a deficit in debt. He doubled the debt, the cumulative debt on
What
this
is the
economy.
difference between those?
Deficit is like, your ingoings and your outgoings for a year. Debt is all of your cumulative debt from creation. So Barack Obama in his single presidency put on more debt than all the other presidents combined going back to Washington.
How wild is that? What was he buying? Bombs to drop on Libya and everybody else?
Ridiculous stimulus programs, that didn't work. I mean, and it's so ironic. Here you have, now you have deficit hawks down in Congress. You're saying, oh, we don't want Donald Trump to spend $20 billion on a wall because, Barack Obama just spent $10 trillion in 8 years on who knows. Well, we didn't even get a T-shirt for it, but we can't let Donald Trump spend $20 billion. No.
I just got an amazing idea, Charles. If they do actually succeed in building that wall, perhaps they could put this photograph on it, and then it would be a giant tourist attraction. People could come and see. You could write Shithole on one side and then USA on the other, and people could come and take a look at Mr. Trump there.
I love the collars too. That's pretty funny.
That's original from Star Trek. I can't take credit for that.
Why don't we go into the next page, because we got a lot to cover here.
Yes.
So this is our standard introduction disclaimer, and I think our viewers understand by now that our views are the product of our First Amendment rights. We're just expressing our opinions based on extensive evidence that we link to, so you can read it for yourself. Jason, I understand you put these slides up before the broadcast.
Yeah.
Which is great. We'll start doing that every week.
Yep.
Shout out to LaFleur Productions, which is the Twitter name of somebody, I don't even know the person's real name, and I'm not going to say where the person is, who has put a site together that has many of our presentations ready for us, which is really great. This is hysterical. This is Duterte. Yeah, it's LAFLEU Productions. And it might be all one word.
All right, well, we'll find that another time. But while we're on Twitter, Charles, I always like to remind people to follow you on Twitter.
Oh, thank you.
They're at Charles Ortel, and you always have a lot of interesting things to tweet. Oops, I think we'll come back to that later. But I think you were about to tell people about the Sunday with Charles playlist.
Yeah, I mean, what are we up to now? We've got, how many videos?
78 on here.
78, so this is our 79th today, I guess.
Right, and this is it's not for some reason cooperating. There we go. This is an easy way for people to stay current with all of the information. And when you get to 78 videos, Charles, particularly when you have malicious hackers and other mischievous individuals putting strikes on the various channels, people might notice some of these are hosted at Crowdsource the Truth 2. The most recent ones, of course, I've got them back on the original Crowdsource the Truth channel, which just goes by my name, but we've had some that were coming from 21st Century 3D, where people would be watching the live stream right now. Of course, if they want to sort of insulate themselves from the childish antics of these malicious trolls that would strike our videos and purchase, sometimes in the thousands, downvotes, ridiculous endeavor, they can avoid all that nonsense by becoming a sponsor on patreon.com. And at patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, you're getting all the live streams not dependent on YouTube. So that's a pretty nice feature that I've been able to implement thanks to our generous sponsors. So I want to thank them all.
Good, and we keep promising to do this, but I am going to write several pieces summarizing all of these past shows, because even for me, sometimes it's tough to remember all the different things that we've done. But we've done this by design. We've done this for the prosecutors, and thanks to our audience for getting these videos around to people. I can tell you lots of prosecutors around the world are looking at this, lots of investigators, lots of journalists, lots of people are stuck into this, including, I hope, members of the Trump administration and our own Justice and IRS and other government agencies here in the US.
Well, and of course, the other thing that we've been doing to help people in that regard, Charles, is that people can tune in to, if you just search YouTube for 90 Seconds with Charles Ortel, that's the latest sort of, I don't know if you'd call it a mini series, because they're sort of mini episodes, but it's kind of a nice thing because you recap each of the various episodes that we've done in a short format video that allows people to sort of quickly peruse and decide which of these videos they'd like to go back and review. So that might be a quick way for people to get through some of the material like that.
And I assume we can reassure our audience that we're not going to then do a series of episodes, Drunk History with Charles Ortel or Stoned History with Charles.
Very good idea, actually.
We
should try that.
I don't think so. But anyway, so if we go to the third slide.
I can think of another channel people can tune into if they want drunk history.
Yeah, that's right, MSNBC.
Wasn't what I was thinking of, but that would be good too.
So we don't necessarily need to pull up these links, but the first piece of news here, and it really is disgusting, frankly, that we've learned, I think the world has learned, that the spying on Trump actually began well before July 31st, 2016, when the FBI originally told us they started the spying. And
look at this guy.
Yeah, he's a real a friend of Bill Clinton as well.
Oh, wow.
You see, so this is what was really going on here, I think, is the cabal. We used to have a deep special relationship with the United Kingdom, and unfortunately there are crooked people in the United Kingdom and crooked people in the United States. And there was for a period of time in the internet bubble, there was the City of London wanted to steal initial public offering and financing business, so they dumbed down their rules to try to encourage, frankly, shysters to do their crooked deals on the English market. And going way back, there have always been criminals in the UK and criminals in the US. And I think what we have playing out now, there's a nice look.
You remember that scene, Charles?
Yeah.
That reminds me very much of our friend Mr. Halpern there, right there, walking into the restaurant, the Monty Python This is Mr. Creosote, if I'm not mistaken.
Creosote, right?
Something like that. He can only manage 6 crates of ale tonight. Sorry, I don't mean to distract.
It looks a bit like Sam Clovis, actually. But anyway.
Well, he looks like this guy.
I know. But so I think what has been happening, what particularly was happening under Barack Obama in the Obama 8 years and under Clinton in the Clinton 8 years, is that the dirty people in the UK were very happy to conspire with the dirty people in the US and do all these crooked deals. And in England it is quite common, and in the US, to have these non-governmental spying agencies, basically retired former spies in different international organizations who get together and say that what they're providing is intelligence and security protection,
support and
market and intelligence and things like that.
Right.
When in reality, what I think these crooked firms are doing is doing things that the spy agencies are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And I think that is a whole area. When people talk about it, you get Pocahontas Warren talking about how we have to regulate banks more tightly. There's no regulation whatsoever, as far as I could tell, on these private security services.
Well, virtually no laws about it, nothing.
Right, and they're able to evade it all because they'll be based in the UK but be doing stuff over in some other part of the world, and nobody can really figure out what exactly happened.
I think most people prior to 2016 election had no idea these types of things even existed. Now we know about Fusion GPS, we know about Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner, we know about
Hacklet, yeah.
Hacklet, all of the, it's like there are a lot. We've heard about Shadowbox, all these different companies, right. Black Cube, they're just like intelligence operatives who start these secretive private firms, and they might even be buying down votes and doing social media campaigns to thwart us.
Well, it's in some ways it's quite similar to the 30 years of instability from, I know we follow this closely, from 1618 to 1648, the so-called the 30 Years War. And there what happened, simple summary of a complex topic, what would happen is that, King Jason of France and King Charles of England, we would have plausible deniability. We'd have, Count Schmuck over here, get Baron Idiot over there to start fighting and stirring up trouble. And then when, the people of Italy, the King of Italy would come to us and say, what are you guys doing? What's this Count Schmuck doing? And he'd say, well, I don't know anything about Count Schmuck. I'm the king. He does what he wants. The simple summary back then is they said, no. In the treaty that was signed, kings are responsible for their Count Schmucks. and we need to go back, I think, to a situation where inside the United States of America, you cannot disclaim responsibility as President of the United States for, Count Schmuck Halper, and Count Schmuck Cody Shearer, and all these other people. You can't start doing that, because then, we descend into chaos. And what the Clintons have learned and shown us, or what the Obamas have shown us, these crooks have shown us, yes, I am calling Obama a crook, what they're showing us is they understand that they have populated the departments of justice, the relevant prosecutorial agencies, the IRS, et cetera, with enough of their allies that by the time someone like Donald Trump decides to go after a Barack Obama or a Hillary Clinton, so much time has passed that they effectively have already gotten away with their crime. They understand that. And that has got to change. It's almost like it used to be in the old days when you ran for, old days when you ran for office, you had to post a bond to guarantee society that you wouldn't, take this office, rape and pillage, and then disappear, right? You had to, so that people say, well, that's not really fair. Only the rich people could post bonds, et cetera, et cetera. But there has to be a similar exercise here. First, of understanding the degree to which justice has been perverted. And I believe, when you think about it, there are credible reports that under Barack Obama's presidency, journalists were spied upon, journalists and their families were spied upon, the Senate and the House were spied upon, it's possible the Supreme Court was spied upon. We're now hearing that idiot Clapper, whatever his name, saying that, we meddled in foreign elections, but it was for the benefit, we had the best interests of people in mind.
Which people?
Yeah, exactly. And nobody, when we run these different elections, we don't turn a person into God. It's not like Barack Obama, who had basically a thin record, to put it charitably, of accomplishment before he won the major
Very
accomplishment.
young.
Very thin. Suddenly he's God and knows everything. And I think we have to go back over on this last 8 years. We can't bury these secrets, but understand how far back the spying went, how far back this plot went to make sure that Hillary Clinton followed Barack Obama and swept up the messes that the two of them created in the 8 years that Barack was president, the 4 years she was Secretary of State. And we got to know the truth about this.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're sort of just chipping the surface of a very deep problem, because just to say there are political opposition research firms or corporate intelligence firms or whatever, I think we're just starting to see the depth of this, like firms like CrowdStrike that, they were the only guys to look at the server from the DNC, and who made that company? It's all ex-FBI guys. You've got Sean, what's the guy's name, who's the head of that company?
Which guy are we talking about?
It's like Dmitry Alperovitch and Sean Henry started this company. So Alperovitch is sort of like Russian expatriate guy who used to work for McAfee, and we've heard that McAfee, I mean, this seemed obvious to me that McAfee was making the viruses and then making the antivirus software. So this concept of causing a problem and then having a company there ready to solve the problem seems like something they're very adept at. And I mean, for the FBI to rely on some private firm to investigate the most sensitive stuff and not do their own investigation themselves, why is that even something that could be allowed?
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's where I go back to one of my pet themes here, is that the regulatory instruments that are out there are like, old cathode ray tube things. I mean, they're not
up to the tech.
They're purposefully, I would argue, not up to the task. And that needs to change. Yeah. I mean, these are very serious crimes we're talking about here, of rigging an election, trying to bring down a sitting president,
threatening the president,
threatening people. These are very, very serious crimes, and we cannot. People are watching this. Even now, we have yet another crook, Eric Holder, who claims, who was with a straight face when he was held in contempt of Congress. His reaction was, "I will wear this as a badge of honor for the rest of my life."
Crazy.
That idiot. Crook was last week testing the waters for a presidential run in New Hampshire, because he's seeing this. He's seeing what you can get away with, and the team that are all in for crooked USA, make America crooked again, right? They look at this and they say, look how much people have gotten away with this for 2 years, for 500 days. Yeah. Donald Trump has been tortured by a crooked investigation, by a resistance.
We all have, because he can't be as effective as president when he has to deal with all this other stuff.
And there has to be a reckoning. There has to actually be a reckoning here. So, just jumping to this third link, I'm so happy, frankly, that Donald Trump will just speak up now and say the things that people have been waiting to say for too long. The process by which we take somebody out of obscurity and make them head of the CIA, this idiot Brennan, this bold, crooked idiot Brennan, he is a nonstop liar, instigating trouble, shouting fire in a crowded theater around this country and around the world, giving aid and comfort to the president's enemies, basically threatening the president of the United States and getting away with it. That has got to stop. I mean, we've got to understand how this man came to be head of the CIA, what rules were broken getting him the top level security clearances that he got. Why exactly was Petraeus forced out and replaced by Brennan? Was there a crooked element to that plot?
Yeah.
Right? Was Petraeus prosecuted in ways more aggressively than others have been prosecuted for the same thing? And let's remember, Petraeus lost his job and security clearance for mishandling classified information. And we're trying to remember, who else was mishandling classified information? Do you remember anybody? I mean, that person who was like running the State Department from the Chappaqua,
Henrietta, Harriet. Oh yeah, Hillary.
Hillary, that's right. Hillary. Yeah.
But didn't what's his name? He now works at KK&R. Petraeus.
Yeah.
It's a big job. There's a lot of money. He was talking to Graham Allison about how we should invade China. He hasn't really missed a beat over that.
But still, I mean, the double standard here is just
Yes.
is crazy, and we can't, if we're going to create, as has been created since September 11th, 2001, this gigantic national security apparatus that has 17 node agencies that we are aware of, and who knows how many other ones we don't know about.
Right.
That we can't let that be peopled by amoral, self-aggrandizing criminals.
Right.
Who don't. I'm not saying all the people are like this, but some of the top people, certainly under Obama, that we see associated with this, with certain key exceptions, were disasters.
Yeah.
And they still know the secrets that they learned. Who knows how they're trading on those secrets, what they're doing with those secrets.
Right.
This whole system needs to be radically reformed. And we can't just say, well, let bygones be bygones.
It's in the past.
It's in the past.
Forget about it.
I'm for the future.
They always want to forget about the past. Charles, are you in touch with Dan Bongino? It would be great to
I'm not, actually.
have him on the
show. Yeah, he's
show.
excellent. Yeah.
Whoop. The audience didn't see that. We don't have to show that. He gets trolled like crazy on there.
So I don't know if we can go back to the slides. Sorry.
Sure.
The special counsel investigation. Mark Penn is doing yeoman's duty as a Democrat and as a former Clinton supporter, as a liberal Democrat, coming forward and saying, look, this special counsel thing is completely out of control. I agree with him. I think soup to nuts, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but if you go back to the statute, you read it, you're supposed to identify a crime, determine that the apparatus of the Justice Department cannot credibly investigate that crime.
Yeah, why would that ever be?
Well, because you could have a conflict, and so then you set up this person, Mueller. Now, of all the ginjoids in the world, I mean, why would you take Mueller, somebody who working with Comey, was friendly with Comey, Comey was his successor, appointed by Rosenstein, the three amigos all worked together from 2001 to 2005, and they had this thing over here called the Clinton Foundation, which was covered over with this wrapping paper that said, obvious effing fraud. And it was like all the evidence, like
don't look at that.
There it is. And then you have Comey, Dopey James Comey, and Rod Woodchuck Rosenstein, and this Mueller creep. For 4 years, they're looking at this package over here and it says it's a fraud. It's ticking away, and they don't do anything about it. That team is now all going to be involved in looking into not a crime, but collusion with Russia. I mean, it comes to a point where the President of the United States, somebody or a judge, has to have the power to say, look, not only is this not happening anymore, but because it did happen, there's going to be a look through at why it happened, what rules were broken, and there's going to be retribution here. I think Robert Mueller should lose his law license. I think Comey should lose his law license. I think Rosenstein should lose his law, and that's for starters.
Yeah, they should be
barred from
holding
any position of responsibility. There should be financial penalties against these people because they should have known if Mueller was that upright, Rosenstein was that upright, they should have known that the very process of setting the special counsel in motion was illegitimate. They should have known that.
But they did know, I think, is the issue.
Well, all right, and so, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Right? Over a year of this. So this is a good thing to report. This piece, the last piece I did for Life Zet has gotten picked up by lots of different people, including Pamela Geller. So, this is basically Pamela Geller's site.
Freedom Outpost.
Or at least connected to her, and so she basically wrote a story about my story and then linked to my story, which is nice.
Not a story.
I've met Pamela several times. She's actually quite impressive in person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story. And, while Valerie Jarrett effectively ran the country under Barack Obama, some might say ran the country into the ground, but while she ran the country, she was basically immune from criticism. You couldn't say anything bad about her or Barack Obama. You couldn't like go into it and say, look, this idea of saying, if you remember, I don't know if you remember this, Jason, one of my hackles started to rise when Barack Obama likely at the suggestion of Valerie Jarrett, got on Air Force One to make a presentation to the International Olympic Committee to argue that Chicago should be the preferred site for the Olympics. And of course, Chicago didn't even place in the thing. The idea that you would take the power of a newlywed president in his first year, and you would squander that power by allowing him to get on this plane, go all the way to a foreign country and beg for the right to lose money to have the Olympics in Chicago of all places, is a stupid idea in the first place on many levels. You shouldn't let a president, squander his power that early in his presidency. And that's before you start thinking about why would a Chicago-based real estate slumlord with connections all over Chicago, why might such a person want the Olympics to be based in Chicago? Could it be that person had gotten options on all kinds of land to do crooked deals, just waiting for the announcement to take place? I mean, it reeks on so many different levels, and the people around Barack, as closest people, you need to remember that both Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett were interviewed by the FBI between the election day, November 4th, 2008, and Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2009. They were each interviewed, I believe under oath, to inquire who may have been involved attempting to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat.
Right.
And Rod Blagojevich went to prison so that nobody would know the truth. I mean, there's a big story in that period, November 4th to January 20th, 2009, where a lot of people had dirt, I believe, on Barack Obama, on Valerie Jarrett, and these other people, and what crooked deals were cut then. How did those crooked deals play out while Barack Obama was president? What leverage might Democrats, specifically the Clintons, have had against the Obamas? These are important questions that people are going to dig in now, I hope, and get answers to.
Charles, I was just looking up Valerie Jarrett's parents, and her father here, James Bowman, he is with the Pritzker School of Medicine at the University of Chicago. I am pretty sure that David Hawkins told me that this is where the antidote for Novichok was developed. The University of Chicago holds a patent on certain antidotes for Novichok.
But he died on my father's birthday in 2011.
Ah, that's true, but who knows when they developed that Novichok antidote. But this University of Chicago, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in Chicago. You've got Bernadine Dorn is
Bill Ayers.
They're teaching classes on torture and stuff like that at University of Chicago. So
going back, this idea that a president should have, Donald Trump doesn't appear to be exercising this power, the same power as Barack Obama, but this another idiot on the Obama team, Ben Rhodes, we know from the WikiLeaks disclosures that they tried to get him a temporary national security clearance between November 4th and January 20th, 2009, and Rhodes was turned down, right? So he had to have some problems. How many people in the Obama administration had major league defects in their records, and how many of those defects were basically waived, and by whom, during the 8-year period 4 years when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, and then the whole 8 years when he was president.
Right.
So I hope mainstream journalists are going to start really digging in, and alternative journalists, into Valerie Jarrett, into some of these people around Barack Obama, into Barack Obama himself. Now, the May jobs report, or as people in the Midwest like to say, jabs, was, it's stunning. And what people don't seem to understand in the political nitwit crowd of analysts, they don't understand that these are heroic numbers. When you have unemployment down at 3.8%, that's a really tight job market, and you're going to start to see wages going up. You're going to start to see businesses booming again, and it is impossible to argue that this is bad. And maybe we have a major league crack in the markets between now and the election in November. Maybe we have some international calamity, but if we stay on track, and as the full force of Donald Trump's economic policies begin to reverberate throughout the economy, it is going to be virtually impossible to say, well, I want to bring back those good old days when the economy was falling off a cliff under Barack Obama. I mean, that's going to be a tough one to win. I mean, we could count on Nancy Pelosi to try to make that argument.
Right.
And if we go back into the slides, there was actually, we don't need to pull this one up here, but, or you could actually, this one here. I was watching television and they had that chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, and I think it was Ed Henry of Fox, was saying, well, there's some who, what do you say to the people who argue that this success that Donald Trump is having was actually, the table was set for Donald Trump's success by Barack Obama? How would you respond to that? This guy destroyed that argument in 60 seconds, in essence saying, well, we do remember a previous Obama chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, Larry Summers, arguing that the world forevermore was going to be in secular stagnation, and then 2%, well, that we should be happy with 2% economic growth. That's good enough. That was his argument. That's the Jonathan Gruber argument, that Americans are stupid, you tell them anything, I've got a PhD from MIT, I must be smart, And, there's no way to credibly argue that Barack Obama, under his period, that we got back on the economic trajectory that we had been on from 1981 to even through Bill Clinton, 1981, George H.W. Reagan, George H.W. and Bill Clinton. Take that entire long period of 20 years and look at the growth in jobs in that time period, and then carry that forward. W. Bush was a disaster, but Barack Obama was even worse. You got to look at this in a long-term trend, and you got to adjust the graphs so that they accurately show you the true trajectory of what's going on. Creating 223,000 jobs is good, but we created many more than that back when the population was smaller. So you got to adjust this math. We're still not where we need to be, but we're obviously a lot better off in June 2018 than we were at any time from January 20th, 2009 to January 20th, 2017.
Have you noticed any uptick at Starbucks now that they've made some announcement relative to public bathrooms? I don't even know what that was about.
No, I mean, that was really a boneheaded maneuver. I mean, I'm not going to reveal precisely the Starbucks locations where I frequent, but I could just say that one of them is really in the center of Looney Tune land.
Are you bringing your own chicken dinner to the Starbucks?
No, but people do that.
I know.
It's amazing. People will walk in, and then they'll, get a bunch of people will go into the bathroom, do whatever they might want to do, shoot drugs, have sex, go to sleep, come back out, and then.
But didn't they say they're opening their public restrooms to everyone?
They said that, and then I think a bunch of people said, look, you can do that. You can say to the world where anybody who wants to come use our restrooms and sleep in our restaurants and eat in our restaurant doesn't have to buy anything. You're going to drive us out of business because you're going to attract.
Why would they want to do that?
Well, and I do have a certain amount of sympathy for, both for homeless people and also for, on the other hand, the restaurant. I mean, the restaurant is not an arm of government. The restaurant, it's got shareholders.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. If you were a shareholder in Starbucks, I don't think you would want to be taking on the role of a charity or a homeless shelter. Well, obviously, we need those things, but I could understand a business saying, if you're not buying coffee, get the hell out, homeless or not.
And it's not as if in New York City, specifically, we don't have an enormous government bureaucracy dedicated to trying to
helping homeless people.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a new and very nicely constructed homeless shelter and healthcare center right in this neighborhood.
Right, and so anyway.
Yeah, we're getting off topic. My bad. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm good at that, Charles.
No comment. We go back into the slides, Jason.
It's the ADD.
That's all right. This is a good article here on Marsha Blackburn, and I want to say another word about Marsha Blackburn. I don't give money to political campaigns on principle, and so I'm not a financial backer of anybody, and in particular of Marsha Blackburn, but I will say Of the 435 members of Congress, the only one who came forward and followed up on my original work in 2015 on the Clinton Foundation was Marsha Blackburn. And she got deeply involved. She studied, she sent letters, she got co-signers, she ultimately got an IRS investigation of the Clinton Foundation. I'm not going to reveal who this person is, but I have a close friend from college who, you know, went from being a conservative, went over to the dark side, became a liberal Democrat, actually worked for Republicans, a nice enough person. But when we caught up and this person said to me, you know, what are you doing? And I explained the Clinton Foundation, and
never heard from them again.
And then Marsha Blackburn, this person said, well, you got to understand, we in Washington, D.C., we regard Marsha Blackburn as an idiot.
What?
That's what, yeah. And I said, well, that's your problem, because she's no idiot. This is a person who has got the Clinton Foundation, which is a complex set of issues. She got it comprehensively. She did something about it. She didn't have to help this resident of Manhattan. You know, a lot of times Congress people will say, I'm only going to help people in my district.
Yeah.
And she put a lot of effort, staff effort, into the reports, letters, following up, and now she's running for Senate, and I think that she is going to kick some serious ass in the election in November. I think she's a great candidate, a fine human being, and I think she deserves to, and it'll be, what a pickup to go from criminal Bob Corker, who, you know, you look into his record, our friend Jerry Corsi has done work on Bob Corker's crooked real estate deals. You know, to go from somebody like him who's a swamp monster to getting this kind of a pickup in Marsha Blackburn will be fantastic. So those crowdsource the truth watchers who may be in Tennessee, call up her office, call up her campaign, and try to pitch in and help her. She really needs to be your senator.
There's something weird going on in Johnson City, Tennessee, but I'm not sure what.
Something, I don't know anything about it. But so this I'm calling it the Battle of the 70-somethings. You know, this in red. Here you have the very same people that in 1968, 69, 70 were saying don't trust anybody over 30. Now these people are over 70, and they're falling all over themselves, criticizing each other. Now John Kerry's criticizing Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden's been criticizing Hillary Clinton. Pretty soon Pocahontas will start criticizing Clinton, and who knows, and maybe Sanders will get into the point. I got nothing against 70, 80, 90-year-old people, even 100-year-old people, but, you know, come on.
What about Swift boat deserters or whatever, John Kerry?
You're right. Yeah, I mean, but my point is, doesn't the Democratic Party have anybody who isn't completely a lunatic, age 40, age 50, age 60, who could begin testing the waters to try to rebuild the Democratic, to rebrand it away from this lunatic economic policies, political correctness? You know, it's absurd.
Well, not only that, Charles, it's really, I do have to say this about John Kerry. He's amazingly adept at being completely stupid while still staying on point, because he's saying that Hillary contributed to her own downfall by basically encouraging the Russians to hack by saying something in his speech. I mean, is that not the stupidest thing you've heard today, at least?
I don't know. I mean, the man is a caricature of himself. I mean, he's just, the guy's a distinguished visiting fellow at Yale now. You know.
He's a bonesman. I don't trust him at all. But like, so she says, oh, Putin, he's like Hitler. And Putin's over there like, that's it, hack. Hack.
Well, I mean, that betrays actually a stunning lack of knowledge about World War II. I mean, and obviously Jews suffered enormously in World War II, but Russians as well were killed in the tens, 30 million people were killed in Russia. It's
very stupid all around.
Yeah. So if we go back into El's slides, the last thing here on this, what happened recently, is this guy, Rick Grinnell, who is a very smart person, despite having been graduated from Harvard.
Didn't you go to Harvard?
I didn't go to Harvard College. So he went to Harvard College.
What did you, Harvard Business School?
Yeah, I went to Yale College.
So, but Harvard
Business School.
So that's the
a
rest
trade
of it is
school.
crap.
It's a trade school.
Got it.
It's like, but
you Ivy League guys.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, Rick is very interesting in that he is aggressively and properly, I think, putting the wood to the Germans. I mean, I love Europeans who come to us, to you, to me, and start talking down to us about we Americans, we're so idiotic, we only do things like rescue Europe every 30 to 40 years when they go disastrously into horrible shape. We don't need lectures from Angela Merkel and Macron and others about how the Euro experiment has gone so well. The Euro experiment is a disaster for the people of Europe, the citizens of Europe, and
Brexit.
Merkel's refugee policy only pours more salt into the wounds. So I think Rick Grinnell, Ambassador Grinnell, is going down a path here of explaining to these Germans tough truths, giving them teachable moments. They're not going to like these truths, but the truths include multinational corruption of the kind seen, let's say, by Siemens around the world, failures to pay your fair share of the defense costs, crazy and misguided refugee policies, trading with Iran, saddling your own industry with a counterproductive agreement that doesn't really address global warming, are things that are stupid. And we're not going to we're going to oppose you on this, and we're going to force you to make a choice. You can choose trading with the United States or trading with Iran. Maybe you need more carpets, and other things that you might be able to get in Iran, like caviar.
Persian
but you're not going to be
rugs.
able to do business with the United States in the same way should you choose the mullahs of Iran, who have got their boots on the throats of the average Iranian people who do not want a mullahocracy but have had it for now almost 40 years. He's doing good things, Trump is doing good things, but expect the Europeans to be yelling and screaming over this approach.
Well, Charles, earlier in the week, I had Scott Bennett on, who wrote the book Shell Game, and he went to Iran and said that everything appeared to be fine to him, which I found a little, he might need to look deeper, but I do respect Scott and like what he has to say. I'd never heard of this guy before, so I'm intrigued that he's Trump's right-hand man.
Well, it's interesting. He's I think, the highest-ranking gay person in Trump's Canada, and proud of it. And to say, you have some people saying that Trump is intolerant of gay people. I don't think he's intolerant in the slightest. Nor is Pence. Pence swore this guy in.
Huh, interesting. Well, Pence did some interesting stuff with laws against gays, but we don't have to get into that right now.
That's Indiana.
Right.
So if we go into the next slide. All right. We have talked in the past, and let's not pull up these first two slides. We've talked in the past about the degree to which the UK government started providing money directly and indirectly to the Clinton Foundation as it illegally began claiming it could fight climate change, claiming it could fight HIV/AIDS, claiming it could do economic development, international work. That the UK government abundantly flowed money direct to the Clinton Foundation, but indirectly to governments that then spent the money on these crooked Clinton Foundation schemes. Now, we had an article in 2015 in the Daily Mail, which you could pull up. That says they got 50 million pounds out
That's
of
a lot.
Well, that doesn't come close to explaining the true amount of money that went to Clinton Foundation schemes. Okay, and to get this money out of the UK government, their theory is a lot of oversight. It's not like you could just call the Treasury up and say, hey, could you send me 2 million pounds for my project in Rwanda? You have to have the records of why this project makes any sense. It needs to be vetted. There need to be wires. There need to be after action reports. There need to be audits. Where is all this stuff? Right? And the UK is, to this date, they're resisting and resisting and resisting telling the whole truth about how deeply stuck in they got with this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative, which did not legally exist. If we go back into the slides.
So many people don't understand that. Like, you say that and their eyes just gloss over.
Yeah, well, it's president to president stuff. It's like somebody says, well, Bill Clinton's in town and he wants 20 million pounds. Well, I better get him the 20 million.
Right.
And then you turn around and you give a slice of that back to Tony Blair. You maybe give a slice to Sarkozy, a slice to the Australian government, a slice to the Norwegian government. And one hand washes another.
Right. Charles, whatever happened with, they arrested Sarkozy? We haven't heard anything else about that.
Long hot summer. We don't know yet.
Particularly in Paris. The air conditioning is terrible.
Well, I think isn't around July 17th, isn't that the national holiday, July 12th, where they start burning cars again?
I don't know.
That's
Bastille Day is the 15th.
15th, yeah, that's when it is. It's called Bastille Day. In the last 10 years or so, it's been called Burn the Cars Day. I mean, that's what that's what they tend to do. But here is an example. This report here, if you pull that up, this is a report from the Department for International Development. And it's, what does it say, 388 pages long. Photos, platitudes, but not the truth about what's really going on here.
Maybe it was written by Robert David Steele's lawyer.
Well, the people in the UK, they're really good at writing these reports, and after-action reports, and reports to other people about reports, but not really showing you where all the money went. And they're going to be really embarrassed here once the truth actually gets out. This is a report written in 2008.
Wow.
When the Department for International Development was directly and indirectly funding Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative, which had its authority to operate revoked on March 31st, 2008. This report was written in 2009.
And then you've got a report about the report in the report.
Yeah. What happened, what's going to happen, what should have happened.
Contents, I mean, this is like page 8 already, and there's been nothing so far.
Yeah, it's like over-tabbing, we used to call it.
Wow.
The forward is on what page? 20?
Oh boy, there's a forward in the report. Page 11.
Got to put a map in.
Yeah.
Dedicate a blank page.
Nicely done.
Now your introduction.
Introduction and key achievements.
I mean, we don't need, the viewers can go through this at some length, but this is not a hard numbers bunch of people, and it needs to be a hard numbers bunch of people, because these people have been blowing UK government, UK taxpayer money in the billions. Here's the UNITAID financial report. If we go to the last page of this, second to last page, I think 28. This is the one for 2011. Yeah. Okay, go page 28. This page, yeah, no, one more page, sorry. Here you go. This shows for 2006 to 2011, $1.6 billion, of which $262 million went from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which actually the money went, I think, from DFID, Department for International Development. I think it went from that department into UNITAID. If it didn't, it went from the UK Treasury into UNITAID. And look at these amounts. If we go to the top of the page here, in 2006-07, UK government put in 26 million, then 2008, 40 million, 42 million, 69 million, 85 million, increasing their contributions.
Yeah.
In 2008, if you go down to the next page, let's see, keep going down. Keep going down. Yeah. Here we have the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative in the same period got $483 million. Okay? $483 million. In 2006 and 7, 2008 and 2009, the entity that was getting this money did not legally exist. It was only in 2009 that the Clinton Foundation illegally, they lied to the IRS to get a new entity set up when Barack Obama was president, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. They lied to the IRS, they lied to the donors, they lied to the American public, they lied to the UK government, and $483 million went into this pig of a company, Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative.
It's a huge sum.
$483 million.
Huge
and for that
sum.
we got lectures from the Clintons about how this noble service of Bill Clinton, an Iron Magaziner, and then Chelsea Clinton, the world's diarrhea expert, gets involved. This is just a travesty. $483 million, the largest single donation by far in this time frame, went to an entity repeatedly, wire after wire, project after project, country after country, where the entity didn't actually exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's, they had to know.
Yeah, how many different people knew about this?
Yeah.
Well, in a second, we're going to introduce you to the person who is heading this whole project up. Okay, so if we go back into this. The assessments that the UK government did. This is hysterical. Here's an assessment that the UK government did of the effectiveness of aid money spent through UNITAID. Here's what you see. Got to have colors. Right?
Yeah.
Green is very good. Red is weak. You know, where's criminal on the list? You know?
Purple.
And this basically, a very quick summary, says that, yeah, the UNITAID thing, doing a good job. Pretty good job. UNITAID. Get a green.
Very good.
Yeah, it's just like the Amazon book ratings.
Exactly.
For Hillary Clinton's, what happened? Very good and good.
Yeah, irrespective of the actual ratings.
That's right.
It's great.
It's great. It's fantastic.
98% of the people who read it hated it,
Right.
but we're giving it 5 stars.
Well, why not? And a Michelin 5 stars.
Right. Dessert to go with it.
So if we go back into the slides, then we have, this is amazing here. If we hit this press release, this is from September of 2015. This is an actual Clinton Foundation press release coming up right here. September 25th, 2015. Now, Jason, what was happening around September 25th, 2015?
Well, I guess she was getting ready to renounce her run for president.
She announced that in April.
Oh, so she
April
was campaigning.
Campaigning on September 10th.
She had face planted. Oh, no, that was the next year.
That's next year. September 10th, 2015, Hillary Clinton's name was taken off the list of being a Class A director of the Clinton Foundation. 2 weeks later, they announced this Department for International Development, supposedly a serious operation.
Oh, with
one of
this
the
guy.
largest companies in the world, Unilever, and the Clinton-Juster Enterprise Partnership, which didn't legally exist, announced, validly, announced this ridiculous partnership that's supposed to help 100 million people in Africa and South Africa. No part of this was lawful. No part of it. The Clinton-Juster Enterprise Partnership was, in theory, a Canadian operation run by the Clinton Foundation, which was not allowed to be controlled by the Clinton family, but nonetheless had been controlled by the Clinton family since November 2nd, 2013. Unilever clearly did no diligence here. Or they decided, you know, we know these people are crooked, and we love to promote crooked operations because we're a publicly traded multinational, which is all in for unregulated, crooked globalism.
Well, they're selling soap, aren't they?
Unilever, I think, I suppose
It's like Windex and everything.
Is that right? And food, I thought.
Maybe. It's huge, for sure. I did a production for Unilever many years ago.
Did you get paid in advance?
Well, I mean, I don't ever really get hired by these companies. It's some production company that didn't have any 3D ability, so they would hire me to come in and do the video, and then
I'm just
they get a lot of
advising you
money.
to make sure you get paid in advance.
That was years ago. I got paid.
So this is a clear look at the number of people who are willingly suckered. The UK important Department for International Development, Unilever, and this Juster was, you know,
Wasn't he doing the suckering?
exactly. And you're claiming that you're helping 100 million people. I mean, why don't you say you're helping 3 billion people while you're at it? I mean, 100 million is not so many people in all of Africa and South Asia. But this is a preposterous claim. It is an illegal operation. And some very big names are all in. Right?
Yeah.
So we go back into the slides. I noticed here that there's a gentleman, if you hit that link, there's a gentleman here, Roland Gilmore, and if you go down this, he's trying to get information about the Clinton Foundation, and do this later, but this is all now in public domain.
His emails?
Yeah.
This is like the emails that Hugh Stedman sends on behalf of Harmon Wilfred, where he's just sending $1 million and they're like, kind sir, go piss up a rope.
Yeah, exactly. Meet me at the bottom of this swamp.
Yeah, they're just doing nothing for the guy, basically, right?
Yeah, they're evading the question. Now, I've learned this in England that's slightly different. In America, you ask a general question in a legal process, and you're going to get a very specific response. In England, they have the ability of saying, well, you didn't really ask the precise question. Right? So the ruse these people try to use is that the Department for International Development was funding Clinton Health Access Initiative.
Right.
That's what they try to claim. But Clinton Health Access Initiative in America was not formed, and it was only formed illegally on September 29, 2009. And the UK government was funding efforts of the Clintons fighting HIV/AIDS directly and indirectly prior to September 29th, 2009. So when they try to answer these questions, they try to maintain this fiction. They're only going to deal with, post September 29, 2009 problems when they need to go back to the beginning, explain the diabolical origins of the UK government's support for these massive frauds.
So it's sort of the incorrect ruse to use.
Exactly.
Now, actually, Charles, what you just said was very Star Trekian, because they're always asking the computer stuff, and unless you ask it the precise thing, you're not going to get the right answer.
Right, exactly.
But,
so if we go back into the slides, this is really something else. If you look at this story here, and until I had read this recently, I didn't grasp how big a fraud this actually is. Mo Ibrahim, whose daughter Hadil is on the board of the Clinton Foundation, and is really stupid for staying on the board, because this family has a lot of wealth. This gentleman sold out of he built this thing called Cellnet. And he sold it. It was an African cell thing.
Well, cell like C-E-L, like cell phones.
Right. He's a cell phone wizard. He also, he's a technical guy. He's a PhD in mobile communications. He's a smart guy. But the funding for Cellnet, right? One of the principal funders of CellTel, Cellnet, whatever, was CDC Corporation. CDC Corporation is funded 100%, was funded 100% by Department for International Development. And here you see it, right?
Yeah. But it also sounds like the Center for Disease Control, which is what most people are going to think of.
Well, so here's the thing. You have the UK government, which is in debt, got lots of problems at home and abroad, lots of international commitments. It is taking gigantic streams of money and sending it out to these companies around the world that are for-profit companies, where advisors to CDC can then take investment positions in these private companies.
Right.
And it's very complicated to put on. This CDC needs to go right under the microscope, going way back to figure out exactly who is profiting from, in essence, using taxpayer funds to create massive, illegal, in my view, private gains. And Exhibit A is Mo Ibrahim.
So it's basically, this is almost the financial version of what we were talking about. Maybe the British government can't easily, or without oversight, or without huge repercussion, own, it's like, this is like a middleman. It's owned by the British government, and then this thing goes and does stuff.
But a lot like, Hackett and Downer and Papadopoulos and Halper and all this kind of stuff. I'm inside the government. Inside the government. And I say, Jason, I'm going to be an honest person, and I can't take anything, but I would like to give you £100 million to set up an investment fund, and I will be retiring in 2 years. And I kind of think that, it might be a really nice thing for you to do me a solid, and when I get out, why don't you just give me access to this trust fund that you're going to create, where you will have made preferred investment positions with my money, the government money, and maybe you can hire my wife or my son-in-law or my brother or my grandfather or whatever. This kind of stuff is not checked as carefully as it needs to be checked in the UK. This is the glue that keeps the deep state together. And I bet you, as you get into this, we are going to find enormous instances of American politicians and UK politicians and their families profiting from this. Now, there's this investigative operation, Private Eye, which has been writing about this. And the allegation was, what happened was, I actually know this Commonwealth Development Corporation. When I was in business, we were trying to do a gigantic forestry fund, and I met these people in 1998, and I learned about this thing. This is a long-standing thing. CDC, I think, was formed in 1948, and originally I think it was called the Colonial Development Corporation, then the Commonwealth. And so it's an arm of the UK government that's engaged in for-profit activities, actually, internationally. And what seems to have happened is that it was underperforming. It was created in 48. It was underperforming, so a bunch of people got together and said, well, why don't we privatize a piece of it? So they created this thing, Actus, and the allegation is that the management team stole the portfolio, that they bought the stuff for too low a price, which is the kind of stuff that Mark Rich did, the kind of stuff that crooks do around the world. They get in these public-private partnerships which are basically ways for crooked people in the main to steal assets at unfairly marked low prices
Right.
from the taxpayer and leave the government saddled with obligations. So this, to me, this is a case study in conflicts, in actions that are against the interests of law and order of the UK people.
Yeah.
And everyone involved with this needs to be, even if there's no statute of limitations, if there's a statute of limitations protecting criminal activity, these great educational institutions that are studying all kinds of things like this, Oxford and Cambridge, University of London, Yale, Harvard, need to do case studies on this to figure out who exactly was involved in all of this. And is it possible, by chance, by some remote chance, that the very person centrally involved in this was centrally involved in the Clinton Foundation frauds? Is there a possibility of that by chance, do we think? Let's go into the slides and answer that question. We have this person here, CDC group. Okay, if we hit this link.
Yeah, my mouse is
The mouse is running away from the catnip.
There it is.
The one above it.
Oh, the one above it?
This one here.
Yes, CDC group.
Okay. Next one. All right. Diana Noble.
Right.
Okay. She became the CEO of CDC, which I would argue is a crooked operation, in 2011. And if you go down her background a little bit, about Diana Noble. Okay. Stop right there. Joined CDC after 5 years with the Clinton Foundation's Health Access Initiative, where she took a number of roles, including EVP operations, and oversaw the scale-up of a global program to give children equal access to HIV/AIDS care and treatment to that available to adults. Okay? No part of this paragraph is true.
What do you mean?
The Clinton Health Access Initiative was created on September 9th, 2009. All right? She joined the predecessor operation possibly in 2005 or 6. Okay? There was no Clinton Health Access Initiative created in this time frame. And as we will shortly show you, there are major questions about what she actually was doing and whether the legal entities that she was connected to were validly constructed anywhere in the world where they were operating. So,
also, anyone who's involved for 5 years at this executive vice president level and doesn't know the types of things that you share every week is either the dumbest person in the world or strictly part of it.
right, or just being told, look, this is one big fraud. You shut up, you keep your damn pie hole shut, and you'll get to be head of the CDC, and we'll show you
Cadillac or pine box.
exactly. If we go to the next page
Of this or the slides?
You could go to the next
slide.
Yeah. This lady, Diana Noble, is now going to be, if we don't stop this, she is going to become a non-executive director of the Bank of England, which is like the Federal Reserve Bank, on July 1st.
Yeah, probably even bigger. That's days away.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you're looking at the ascension of a criminal mastermind.
Well, or I don't understand. I believe people are supposed to do a good job vetting senior level hires around the world. We got John Brennan in as head of the CIA. Who are we going to bring Al Capone back to life and make him head of the IRS? I mean, and now this lady. Let's go in and why am I so strident about this lady? Let's go to the next, back into the slides. Okay. This is chapter and verse, literally chapter and verse. I'm going to take a few minutes and go over this. Relevant sections of this is the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, Inc. Articles of Incorporation. All right? Now this is a document which is not on the Clinton Foundation website, of course. They don't want you to see this. But March 24th, 2004, Bruce Lindsay, acting as an agent, he was a lawyer, he was not an officer of the Clinton Foundation. He had no authority, I would argue, to make this gross error in creating a subsidiary wholly owned by the Clinton Foundation that, in theory, was to was to get involved, get the Clinton Foundation involved in the medical care and treatment of people living just with HIV/AIDS, not malaria, not tuberculosis, just HIV/AIDS, to educating the public about it, and to improving health delivery systems internationally in resource-poor areas of the world. This change was made. This was an illegal change because the parent corporation had no authority to do this. All right, so by this act, Bruce Lindsay gutted the legal authorization of the Clinton Foundation to do its important job, which was to finish
The library.
the library, which had not been finished at this point. Right? This is unbelievably irresponsible. It defines gross recklessness. All right, and who hired Bruce Lindsay to do this? Who supervised this?
Where did he get the idea, even?
From Ira Magaziner and Bill Clinton. As a guess, what happened is they were out there in 2002 and 3, traveling around the world doing all this stuff. Now big governments like Ireland and other people wanted to give, and Norway wanted to give the Clinton Foundation money, and some boffin in England or Ireland said, you know, I don't see any authority for the Clinton Foundation to do any of this work.
Killed that guy.
Yeah, get rid of another boffin said, all right, okay, we better set up the corporation. So they set the corporation up. And you know, either Lindsay is really stupid, which I don't think he is, you know, or really devious, which I do think he is.
Yeah.
He said, you know, we can't change our articles of incorporation to do this, because if we do that, holy hell is going to break loose, because the state regulators in New York and California and Massachusetts and Michigan, they know we can't do this. So the way we're going to do this is we'll set up a subsidiary and nobody will tie the two things together. That's probably what they thought. Okay.
Charles, has anybody replaced Schneiderman yet, or what's going on with
There's
that?
this appropriately named acting attorney general who's from Game of Thrones, Barbara Underwood.
What?
Is actually her name.
What do you
She's
mean?
not from Game of Thrones, but her name is Barbara Underwood.
Uh-huh.
So they created this thing on the 24th of March 2004, and then by April 21st or 29th, depending on which version of a state report you want to buy into, they filed an application with the IRS to get federal tax exemption for this entity, and never got it. They never were approved because they couldn't have been approved. Right? It's so far outside.
So somebody in the IRS.
So
knows
somebody in
what's
the
going
IRS,
on.
there's a record in the IRS, and they know this. Right? This is why they're clamming up. You know, they don't. This rot runs so
Who's
deep.
clamming up? The conspirators or the
Yeah,
IRS?
the IRS and the Department
They're
of
one
Justice
and
and
the
the
same.
political. Yeah, exactly. So they then say, all right, well, we got to have this didn't work. We got to have a different fix. So this is where it gets interesting. On the 10th of July 2007 in the UK, they filed documents which had been signed by crooked Bruce Lindsay and crooked Andrew Kessel on March 23rd, 2007. I think in the US or maybe in the UK. They register the UK equivalent of a not-for-profit corporation, right? And over there, we've talked about this in the past, purposes in the US are called objects in the UK.
Okay.
And it's the same idea, right? And it says in this charter, the objects, first of all, you can't do this under US law. You can't have general purposes. You've got to have specific purposes. So they articulate a general purpose of the advancement of health or the saving of lives in general.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, huh? How is that charitable? I mean, for-profit hospitals advance health and save lives.
Going to the gym advances your health.
Eating healthy. I mean, it's just
Right.
this is just you
Go
can't
to
do
Subway instead
Right.
of Starbucks.
this. Right. And so here they say, you know, they then put a sub things that are all about. Note it's all about the AIDS virus. And for those people who understand HIV and AIDS, HIV is the virus that then
AIDS is the
leads.
syndrome.
AIDS is that leads to the
Immuno
condition.
syndrome.
Yeah, HIV is thought to be the virus that
Causes the breakdown of the...
whose growth process can be retarded by antiretroviral drugs, but AIDS is the condition that, you know, past the point of no return. You can't do much for
With
somebody
AIDS.
with AIDS. You know, you say,
It's
look,
an immune deficiency.
yeah, you're going to go, and the question is, you know, it's just a question of when. And so, just the very way in which they did this is inartful, because there's little to suggest for all the work that's happened since HIV and AIDS were identified in the early 80s. There's little to suggest there's been much progress on AIDS. There has been a lot of progress in retarding, in theory, the growth, the turning of HIV into AIDS. There's been a lot of progress in that.
In
theory.
stopping it from happening.
In arresting the growth of the virus.
Magic Johnson is looking all right.
He's still in great shape, right? Now, cynics would say that's because there isn't really an HIV virus. There are some people who argue that it's been misdiagnosed. There are other contributing people. Serious people do argue that. I'm not equipped to know the difference, but I can say that on the 10th of July 2007, when Diana Noble was a founding director of this crooked entity, William J. Clinton Foundation in the UK, one of 3 directors, the other 2 being crooked Bruce Lindsay and crooked Andrew Kessel, who definitely knew better, they decide they're going to expand the UK's authority to do this: the advancement of health or the saving of lives by the promotion of healthy nutritional practices. That's that Alliance for a Healthier Generation that they had started in 2005. The relief of poverty. Now let's think about that. The relief of poverty can be the same as giving you money, right? It's not necessarily charitable to relieve poverty by, let's say, giving somebody $200,000 for a stupid ass speech. You know, that relieves their poverty, but is that charitable?
They're relieving people of their wealth.
Yeah. And then the resolution of conflicts in all forms. Let's talk about a modest goal. The resolution of conflicts in all forms, and in particular, without limiting the general scope of the clauses, the resolution of ethnic or religious conflicts. Now, the Clinton Foundation had no authority to do that. And here's a subsidiary controlled by the Clinton Foundation being set up in the UK with Diana Noble as the only outside director. I mean, she's an employee, actually, of, in theory, something over in the UK. We're not sure what yet. And then the advancement of environmental protection, it should say, or improvement, it's my typo. Okay, so this is rubbish. Diana Noble gets involved with this foundation. It will show you it's against the law what they did on July 10th, against UK law. They lied to the regulator about the powers of the Clinton Foundation, the ultimate parent of this entity. They lied to the regulator about the authority that the Clinton Foundation had to do any of this. And they secured from the British government tax exemption, UK tax exemption for this entity on false pretenses, which is a serious crime. Diana Noble is centrally involved in that. Then, on the 22nd of November 2001, in the UK, they created up a new company, Clinton Health Access Initiative UK. All right, and here they say this entity, controlled by Clinton Health Access Initiative in the US, has the right to prevent the spread of infectious diseases such as HIV/AIDS, but now you're into malaria and tuberculosis. I mean, you know, you can't do this. You can't
they just made a list of all the most terrible things, and they said, we're going to fight that. Give us money.
Yeah, more money. You know, so here we have all that, and then the relief of poverty in general, in particular by activities that help alleviate poverty and disease in resource poor settings of the world. This is, you know, written by a mindless troll.
Well, it means nothing.
It means absolutely nothing, but except that here's Diana Noble involved in multiple instances of lying under oath to regulators. Okay, and nonetheless, through this period, she's promoted to being CEO of the CDC Group PLC, a gigantic company. Now she's going to be on the board of the Bank of England.
That's exactly the kind of woman we need for that job.
I don't know. Well, we go to the next page, next slide. Yeah, here's, I call her the ignoble Diana G. Noble. This is a chronology. All of these dates, you can go down, and we won't put the link, you can go down to these sites. I show you for the William J. Clinton Foundation, UK, that's the first link. And then the second one is for Clinton Health Access Initiative.
Why is it beta?
It's just that's just the site's name. It's a beta testing. But if we go back into the smaller type. So Diana Noble is supposed to be pretty smart. How come on the 31st of March 2008, she didn't learn that the authority for the parent company for Chai was revoked in Massachusetts with effect from the 31st of December 2007, just when she's starting out. On the 12th of March 2008, she puts an application in alongside Andrew Kessel and Bruce Lindsay to register this crooked subsidiary with the Charity Commission, 19 days before the authority for the parent company is revoked. That's a serious thing. When the Massachusetts, the state where the headquarters of your parent company is operating, says you can't do business in our state because you're that screwed up, typically something you might want to tell the UK about. right? And here's Diana Noble claiming that through this entire period, from March 2006 through sometime in 2011, Diana Noble is claiming that she's the executive vice president for Clinton Health Access Initiative, an entity that legally didn't exist, and nobody's testing this. Not the UK government, not the Australian government, not the American government, not the IRS, not the Department of Justice, not the Attorney General of Arkansas. Nobody cares. One big happy globalist party. So, and then back in here, it's interesting. I checked this. This entity that was created the 29th of September 2009 files application for federal tax exemption on the 31st of December 2009 and purposefully omits the names of the people involved in this operation so that we can't tell exactly what role Diana Noble had. She claims she was in charge of the whole international thing. She doesn't show up in the Clinton Foundation 990s for 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11. She doesn't show up in this form. She does show up in certain UK filings, but those filings were a tiny little company that doesn't really explain where all these hundreds of millions of dollars that funneled through Unitate actually went.
How could all these smart and seemingly super official people do all this shady stuff and think that nobody's ever going to find out?
Because that's how they roll. It could be as bad as the corruption is
that rampant
in the UK and in Washington D.C. and it would seem in Arkansas.
Amazing. Well, Arkansas is easy to believe.
Yeah. So if we go to the next page. All right, this is lifted from her resume. Look at this. Ms. Noble served as an executive vice president at Clinton Health Access Initiative, where she served for 5 years. She joined the Clinton Foundation's HIV/AIDS initiative in 2005. It didn't exist legally. As executive vice president of operations, with responsibility for 43 countries, 5 global teams, oversaw the scale-up of a global program. She served as its executive vice president of global teams and served as its special advisor. Okay, this is from a Bloomberg summary. Here's one from a fund that she's on the board of. Another public, it's a company in the UK, another registered company.
And there's a photo of her.
And if you go down biography, okay, here, Diana joined CDC after 5 years with the Clinton Foundation's Health Access Initiative, where she took a number of roles, including executive vice president of operations. How could you operate in 43 countries and not know this was a fraud?
Yeah.
Right? In every single one of these countries, most of these countries in Africa and Asia, when you go in, you have to register your charity. If it's this big, you absolutely have to register it in places like Nigeria and South Africa and Tanzania.
Yeah, but
Rwanda.
can't you just pay whatever agency?
But the point is, putting up, here's the law, right? And here's what she did. Here's what happened under her tenure. Right. This is a person who was head of the CDC and was still maintained a connection, it would seem, to the illegal Clinton Foundation while she was head of the CDC.
That's all the people they want working for the Clinton Foundation. It's just like a rogue gallery, and then they go have positions in these agencies all around the world.
It's amazing. We just keep going on those slides.
Slider-roonies.
And we're almost actually done. If we go to the next page. Okay, this is, I just thought the Charities Act of 2011 amended the Charities Act of 1993. But here you see it is an offense for a person knowingly, and I'm going to assume that she's so dumb she didn't know, but instead she recklessly provided the commission with information which is false or misleading in a material, particularly if the information is provided, This is what happened.
But this is U.S.?
This is UK. UK law, okay? You're listening, UK regulators. In particular, Alana Goodman at the Daily Mail, Tim Raymond at the Sunday Times of London. Are you listening? I mean, you can see this legislation. I didn't try to get all the places in which they broke the law in the UK because we don't have enough time in this century to get through it.
Yeah.
But if you go and you hit this link here, for people who are curious, here's the 250 pages of English law. And you could go at your leisure and try to decide how badly did they break English law. As a guess, it's not simply the charity aspects, it's also going to be obtaining something by deception. And you start doing this, as a former president, as head of the CDC, around the Commonwealth, all these different countries that are modeled on the UK, have UK laws that have charity laws, you're breaking all these laws? I mean, I would have assumed that somebody in the UK would want to make an example of this Diana Noble, an example of the Clinton Foundation, and say, we will not stand for this anymore. We want our damn money back from you, and you people have made a lot of money at CDC off the UK taxpayer. You people at the Clinton Foundation have made a lot of money off various government taxpayers, illegally, and that money needs to be repaid.
Is that a law, obtaining something by deception?
Generally speaking, I'm not a lawyer, but generally speaking, it's a principle that applies in UK and US law.
I know so many people who have done that.
That's right. That's what makeup's all about, I guess. But anyway. So
no, that's not what I was talking about.
I'm just teasing you. So if we go to the final slide.
Oops.
Which is
a little problem. There we go.
All right, and maybe make that a little bigger.
Seems to be actually has changed a little bit each week, but it's always interesting to see the syntax you choose.
To keep you guys awake, that's what we try to do here. So people are asking questions in the UK about whether Philip May, Theresa May's husband, and businesses he was associated with, whether they have been investing capital abroad, skirting the rules. And to be fair, when you invest money abroad, which people have to do, the laws can be extremely complicated, and the smartest way to do some forms of international legal investments are to do it through shell companies in the Cayman Islands and other places like that. It's just a smarter way to do it. There's nothing criminal involved, unless what you're doing is people are going to John Podesta and saying, all right, John, we understand you're probably going to be a pretty senior guy when Hillary wins.
Right.
So why don't we give you a sweetheart deal that you don't want to disclose anywhere to be a director of Jewel Unlimited, which is going to really do well under the Hillary Clinton administration, and we'll just cut you in for some discounted supercharged stock that you're not going to tell anybody anything about. That's illegal.
Don't lose your cell phone in the taxi or make your password for the email password.
Right. And I think we're going to see. There's this Vanity Fair article here, the second link. The Panama Papers and now the Paradise Papers. We're going to start.
Sorry.
I don't think you had these links up.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't. That's why I couldn't find it. Here it is.
So this is a story that's worth, Joseph Stiglitz is a famous guy. This is a story worth reading about and understanding. There are sadly lots of potentially crooked deals that were papered over in Panama, the country of Panama, and as well in these other island paradises, the so-called Paradise Papers.
Well, and Charles, Carolyn Dare Wilfred's brothers and father had some offshore trust that was revealed in the Panama Papers that's resulted in some drama there.
Right. So the notion that elected leaders should be investing
in offshore
stuff
offshore
is not something I sign off on. I mean, a lot of people are making a lot of difficulties for Trump over his gigantic empire. I'm one of the people who suggested early that he put everything in a trust fund. He didn't listen to me.
Did not do that.
You didn't do it. He should have done it.
Some bad's going to happen down the road.
Well, it's just why it's riskier. I mean, it's not like.
How does he not have you in the cabinet there, just telling him exactly what to do?
No.
Charles, Highway to Serfdom on Periscope wants to ask you, who prosecutes worse, Rhode Island or Arkansas?
Who prosecutes? Who does a worse job?
It's difficult to know what they're trying to ask. Is Rhode Island worse than Arkansas? I think
Arkansas is a lot worse.
Really?
Rhode Island, yeah.
The mayor of Rhode Island, or the governor or something, was like a mob boss. And the mayor of what's the capital of Rhode Island?
Providence.
Providence. The mayor of Providence was like a mob guy who got I think he beat somebody over the head with a log from a fireplace.
Well, Providence has a long and distinguished history, including an ancestor of mine who was an original founder of it.
I love it.
Anyway,
we always have to have these little animated ancient ortels.
It wasn't an ortel. It was somebody else. It was a green, actually.
They would all look exactly like you in my
cartoon.
They wouldn't.
We talked about this hit in in Ukraine last week. We talked about how, and it turns out now that apparently this was staged.
Right.
And you have a lot of experience in Ukraine. Most Americans don't, and our relationship, our decision under George W. Bush and then under Barack Obama to cozy up with the nationalist Ukraine elements is a regrettable decision, I would argue. That was an uninformed, let's put it charitably and say it was uninformed decision.
Because the nationalists in Ukraine, aren't they like Nazis, basically?
Basically, and worse than that. And so that's not a team we should be siding with. And as we go around the world trying to argue that America's a force for freedom and,
my ex-wife's family has left Ukraine since our divorce. Oh, look, he's got even a swastika-looking thing on his shirt.
Yeah.
That's the hitman.
Nice looking guy.
He looks like he should be in a Ricola commercial. Not that I know anything about that kind of stuff.
But, so the whole idea of our relations with Russia, what Russia may have been trying to do in Ukraine, what Joe Biden's family and others were trying to do with the Ukraine nationalists. This is an area where, forget Jake Tapper, forget the New York Times, forget, independent journalists like you and others need to get to the bottom of what was really going on. Why was Russia concerned about American support for Ukraine nationalists? Could it be that the Russians, remember a lot more about what happened in World War II and do not want to see a racist, anti-Semitic thugs take over a government on their border and perhaps, carry out malicious actions against Russians who are resident inside Ukraine? I mean, there's a lot more to this story. I'm not saying that you should give Russia the right to seize Crimea,
right.
But I am saying that at best our policies in the Ukraine were uninformed, at best. And at worst, they're crooked.
You're reminding me of an episode that we did with Lee Stranahan that I think had to do with that whole Charlottesville thing,
Right.
Remember, where Trump said there were problems on both sides and everybody said, oh, he's supporting racists. Lee pointed out that when that whole riot, or whatever you want to call it, started, the people came out chanting, I think it's dirt and blood, which was the exact chant that these Ukrainian nationalists were. It was like totally a
Right.
Soros setup.
Right, I believe it was. I really do.
But people, they try to distract you with nonsense. They'll be like, oh, Trump's a racist, that's the story, forget about all this other important stuff. And they lock in on that. That's a technique.
Right, I know.
And we see other people using that as well.
So we're seeing the Italy election, we're seeing now, if you hit this link, we're seeing the new Interior Minister of Italy saying, you're going to be packing your bags and getting the hell out of Italy.
Who is going to be packing the bags?
These migrants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're seeing you're seeing Slovenia just voted in a similar way.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, or I should say, put it the other way, the Obama policies, trying to shame European nations and the United States into taking these Mideast, quote, migrants out of Syria.
Which Obama policies basically created them.
Right, the Hillary Clinton policy starting in Libya. And then into Syria with John McCain's able support. It's just it's foolishness. Absolute foolishness.
This guy looks like he smokes a lot of cigarettes.
Yeah, hemp.
I
So if we go back into the El Slidos.
Did his thing say hemp? Was he supporting hemp?
I don't know.
He's just got like the black circles under his eyes, like.
We have now, people are starting to focus on these races for Attorney General, and I would like to encourage crowdsource people that this is absolutely correct. We have got to be asking anybody running for Attorney General in this election cycle in November why they aren't prosecuting the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Foundation initiative. Whether Democrat or Republican, we've got to have a write-in campaign, a Twitter campaign. You'll get some traction if you continue, and thanks for your help. We've got to find somebody who probably will know how to do this, who can make it easy for any Twitter follower to send a tweet to an Attorney General candidate saying, "What can you promise us that if you're elected Attorney General, you will investigate and prosecute the Clinton Foundation for fraud? Yes or no?"
But you can't promise that you'll prosecute without doing the investigation first.
I said, well, can you promise you'll investigate the Clinton Foundation and then prosecute for fraud if warranted?
Okay.
You know, so you ask a question like that.
Caveat.
Whatever. But so any person seeking the Attorney General's position in any of these states, then beyond that, there are a number of Attorney Generals who are running for governor or higher office, senator. So they have to be asked again, you know, why didn't you investigate and prosecute the Clinton Foundation for fraud? We've got to get a Twitter campaign going on this, I think. And I'm now making a plea to our followers, you know, if you have the time, let's get this going. I'm going to start doing it, retweet it. Let's build a buzz. Let's make it go viral.
Yeah.
So that people start answering these questions.
You got to come up with a cool hashtag, Charles, like time phone hack. But this article, ironically, is talking about how people who are against Trump are becoming more focused on the Attorney General. I guess I do think a nice side effect of what's going on is that I do think that the average person is sort of generally more informed. I think there was a time not that long ago where you could have said, "Who's the Attorney General?" and people will be like, "What? Attorney what?"
We have one of them?
Yeah. And now everyone knows it's a useless lump named Sessions.
Yeah. So if we can put up Donald Trump's Twitter feed.
Yes.
I mean,
It's epic.
it is. But look at this. This did come out, as I thought, 3 hours ago. He's citing Mark Penn saying, why are there people from the Clinton Foundation on the Mueller staff? Why is there an independent counsel? To go after people and their families for unrelated offenses? Constitution was set up to present this. Stormtrooper tactics almost. This is Penn talking, and Donald Trump saying, a disgrace.
Yeah. Now, remember, they were very into like, oh, don't let him tweet, but this is an important platform for him to counter the nonsense news.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a few followers.
Is he the largest followed person on Twitter with 52 million?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Oh, he's on Instagram. I haven't seen that.
I've never been on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, you're
Anyway,
not.
this is mandatory reading. I would encourage people to it's very entertaining, frankly.
His Twitter feed?
Yeah.
He is funny. I'll give him that.
So,
Paul Manafort. Oh, that's a whole other thing that he's on there.
and then this is just disgraceful. I saw this. This, I think, is run by.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Millennials would rather date an MS-13 gang member over a Trump supporter. I mean, this is just, and it's a Daily Caller story, but picked up by, I think, Pamela Brown over at Fox, who's a very smart top producer. I mean, this is just absurd.
Well, they would be killed by an MS-13 gang person.
Yeah, it's just,
I don't even think they know what that is or means. They just want to be anti-Trump.
Yeah, I would guess the sample.
Would you want to go on a date with that guy, Charles?
I wouldn't go on. I date women, Jason.
No, I'm kidding. Obviously.
But
So
it's
that's
just
an
disgusting.
interesting poll.
Disgusting. If we go then back into the slide, then we pull up this one. Now, University of Michigan, why does it need to have 100 full-time people on the diversity staff? What's that all about?
You got to have a diverse staff.
It's ridiculous.
But this looks like a white woman. That's not that diverse. It's only hot white girls on the diversity committee. I don't understand what this article is talking about, but okay.
Well, no, like you should have, I mean, in theory, you want to encourage a diverse student body, diverse professors, diversity of thought. That's become more, and look at the pay here.
Wow. Whoa. That's a lot of money.
These are public universities. I mean, this is an absurd amount of money.
That is. How
And-
much are the teachers getting paid?
I don't know, but I mean, to me, I think we are way past a zone of sanity.
What is vice provost for equity and inclusion? This is certainly an equitable compensation there.
Yeah, exactly.
Chief Diversity Officer, University of Michigan's Army of
Now-
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Now, far be it from me to notice that items 1 through 4 would all appear to be men.
Right, William,
And
Gary, and
then to check on item 5, do you think Tabby Chavis Sellers might be related to Robert?
Robert? What?
I mean,
This is absolutely crazy.
I'm not saying she is, but I mean,
It certainly
possible.
seems suspicious. Suspicious. Well, Phyllis Blackman, so at least they have a black man in there.
Who's a woman?
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
That's a joke.
I got it.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway, it's out of control here. I mean, these are salary levels. Remember, we're talking about Ann Arbor and Michigan.
Entry level is 90 grand.
We were talking about Ann Arbor, Michigan. We're not talking about a very expensive place to live. You know, and we are talking about a public university. We are not talking about Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. You know, this is just
Crazy.
indefensible staffing levels, indefensible pay, and more proof, more arguments for the initiative we're going to take after we get done with the Clinton Foundation frauds and related frauds of exposing this epic corruption and waste in our system of higher miseducation.
Perhaps you should start Ortel University.
Oh, no.
Why not? We could have a Skull and Bones club there.
We just
Tennis
stop
club.
already with that. Anyway, so this actually here is good news, if true. This is in BBC. We've had some fake news in our last broadcast. But if this is true, sadly, most men after a certain age do get prostate cancer. If it is true that they now have developed this immune system drug, this really would have enormous impact. When you look at the age profiles of senior populations, in part, men die younger because of prostate cancer.
Yeah,
So-
but I'm going to disagree with you openly here, Charles.
All right,
I think
go
this
for
is
it.
like throwing more fuel on the fire. I think what we need is people need more iodine back in their natural diets, which is because your prostate and other glands in the body are getting totally inundated with chlorine, bromine, fluoride, all these things that are in the water that are halogens in the periodic table, like iodine, but you have almost no iodine in the US diet. Japanese people get it from seaweed and stuff, but I think that's having a huge impact on prostate health, thyroid health, and just making more pills to overcome the problem of being inundated with pollution and chemicals. I don't agree with,
No.
but perhaps this is a good way for a pharmaceutical company to make more money.
I don't honestly know, Jason, but I think I don't know.
seems good news.
It seemed like good news anyway.
This guy
He's-
is
he's
a
a scru-
bumpkin or whatever
He's
the
a
word
scruffy.
is.
He's a
No,
scruffy.
what's the word? The boffins.
He's a
This-
boffin scruffy. See, this is a classic scruffy. You know why? He's at some expensive place here. It looks like a bar. Can he not afford a razor blade? I mean, that's not a flattering beard, right? I mean, the guy looks like.
Well, he's getting hammered, worried about his prostate cancer. Maybe less booze and that sort of stuff might. He took the trial.
There you go.
Well, good. Hopefully he's doing better. Love for him to get that prostate back in order.
So if we go back in, we have a report, and this is really an
Yes.
important thing. We did the strange death of Peter Smith, I think. We did one or more episodes of that.
Yep.
And I've had my eye on this case, the John Glasgow case, ever since around this time. Actually, March of 2015 is when I started looking at it. So John Glasgow, see a picture of him here, was the chief financial officer of a construction company called CDI Contractors, which was a joint venture of the Dillard department stores and the Clark, which I think it may be Wesley Clark's family. It may not be his precise Clark, but I think there's a tie-in.
Wow.
And the idea behind it was sort of a novel idea that Dillard's is a gigantic publicly traded retailer. Who just was building store after store after store, getting ripped off by contractor after contractor after contractor. So they said, listen, why don't we find a contractor we can trust, do a joint venture, and have that contractor build out all our stores and encourage that contractor to take other business.
Yeah.
So they did that, And the first CFO that they found for this joint venture turned out to be a crook and embezzled all kinds of money from the joint venture. This young guy came in and replaced that crook. And CDI became then the contractor for the Clinton Foundation complex in Little Rock.
Yes, right. The one thing they're legally allowed to do.
Right. And it turned out that this guy on January 28th, 2008 disappeared.
Right.
And his remains were found in March of 2015. He was declared legally dead beforehand. There is now still an open case as to his death. They haven't determined, that it was either suicide or murder or what happened. It was an open case. We will be revealing tomorrow in depth real big motives, economic motives, why this guy could have been killed. And we're going to take the audience through it in some depth and great detail. We're going to have slides which will point you to evidence, but I'll just give you the summary, and that is, in the crooked books, concocted books of the Clinton Foundation for the period 2003, 4, 5, 6, and 7, these crooked books are books that centrally confirm, where CDI and this chief financial officer was asking tough questions. The evidence shows about, something, we don't know what it was. I suspect it was all about the Clinton Foundation overcharging, claiming that they'd spent a lot more money on the foundation than they really spent. And now the contractors are trying to say, now wait a minute, we didn't spend $165 million on this thing. How come you say in your books you did?
Well, there was the golf course, the strip club,
right,
the restaurant.
Exactly. But the thing is, he disappears January 28th, 2008. Now what was that? That was smack dab in the middle of the Clinton Foundation, the Hillary Clinton first presidential campaign, when she had raised a ton of money and blown it. And the last thing she needed was to have people asking tough questions about the Clinton Foundation. This guy disappears on January 28th, 2008. I say he was murdered.
Well, and also he's young, like 30s, right?
He had no health problems, no children. He was married. He had a decent financial situation. He was basically on a course where he could have been very wealthy. And he kept his nose clean. And he made the mistake of asking some tough questions, and those questions got him killed. As a guest, by people, I'm not saying Hillary and Bill Clinton ordered his death, but people around the Clintons, thought Hillary was bankable and thought she would be the president, and likely thought they'd get away with even more murder, as it were, than they got away with when Bill was president. And this guy disappeared, and he ends up in a state park in a remote portion.
They love doing that.
With an antique rifle nearby, the same MO as Vince Foster.
Right.
There needs to be a serious investigation of the Clinton Foundation going all the way back to 1997. Ground that needs to go over in particular is the investigation that happened from 2001 to 2005, led by dopey James Comey and involving Robert Mueller, and should have involved Rosenstein. Why did they miss all this? Why did the fraud escalate even more after they stood down the first investigation? People who are not vulnerable in Arkansas need to be brought into this mix and go over the ground of this John Glasgow murder and follow it where it leads. It could well lead to powerful donors to the Clintons. Who knows where it actually leads, but this is an open case, and we're going to do a special thing on it tomorrow. And maybe the people that that I don't know, who I don't know, who are in the investigative world, like Thomas Paine and others, there's a medical examiner report that could be reviewed here.
Yep, I want to try to get Dr. Rudd to look at that.
Yeah.
Well, Charles, that was a very comprehensive array of information. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
I just want to point out that we've done this in 2 hours.
Very, very good. And I just want to point out that if people are watching regularly and enjoying the program, I'd love it if they become sponsors. They can be a monthly sponsor at patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or make a one-time sponsorship payment at paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. And as I travel around to New Zealand, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., the various other places that I'm going to go, even just the day-to-day operations, it requires regular funding. So if you're a regular viewer and you're not a sponsor, please reconsider. You got to become a sponsor so we can keep going into the future. It's good news that the main Crowdsource the Truth channel continues to grow in subscribers. We've got about 59,000 subscribers there. So if even a small fraction, if 10% or 5% of those subscribers came on for $1 or $5 a month, becomes a very financially healthy organization, and we can continue to develop more shows. I think there's a lot of research to be done into the strange death of John Glasgow. We've been talking a lot about Peter Smith now. That's come up again. It was only just a year ago that he was found dead. Lots of links to that Lawfare blog, which is written, we've got a writer on there, this guy Matt Tate, who's connected to Google Project Zero. A lot of the work that Quinn Michaels is doing now, it's interesting for me to see how the diverse guests that come onto the show are all studying topics that on one level or another seem to connect. And that's one thing that I try to do here at Crowdsource the Truth is I don't know the answers to all these questions, but sometimes when you bring all the people together who are asking the questions, one person has an answer that the other person may not. So it becomes extremely powerful, and I appreciate you being a part of that process as always, Charles. We should remind people to follow you on Twitter. They can do that at Charles Ortel, and they can also go to charlesortel.com. Do you have a link to charlesortel.com on here, Charles?
I don't.
Well, people can remember that quite easily. It's spelled exactly like your name.
I hope so. That was the goal.
Yeah, easy one to remember. So we will see everyone tomorrow for that special about John Glasgow. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you then. Oh, I should have had a beam out effect.